And we'll put it in a political prism in a second. New study came out showing that the impact that loosening gun laws can have. The study from Johns Hopkins, it focused on the state of Missouri, which in 2007 repealed a law requiring handgun owners to submit to a strong background check. Once that law was repealed, the rates of gun homicides in Missouri spiked by 16%, while nationally the rate fell 11%. But there remains a big divide, certainly in this country, as to whether more guns make people more or less safe, and that split shows up in our politics. There's a new Q poll out that says 83% of Democrats say more people having more guns makes people less safe. On the flip side, 75% of Republicans say the exact opposite, that more guns with more people makes Americans safer, which is why some Democratic governors are doing what they can to increase gun safety, and we'll see how this plays politically. Go to Virginia, where the Democratic governor and attorney general announced their state will no longer recognize concealed carry permits from other states. Now remember, Virginia is blue, but it's light blue here. Fascinating how that plays out down the pike. While the Democratic governors in both New York and Connecticut, a little bit less risky politically, they're both working to ban gun sales to people on terror watch no-fly lists. Again, I don't know how that's a debate in this country, but anyway. We then go to outside the political realm, but nonetheless an important player, the NBA. They've decided to get into the game. Now, the league, it will air the spot I'll show you in a second, a gun safety PSA during the highly watched Christmas Day games this Friday. A PSA made in conjunction with Everytown for Gun Safety. That's Michael Bloomberg's gun control group. Take a look for yourself.
I heard about a shooting involving a 3-year-old girl over the summer. My daughter Riley is that age.
There was a point when I felt that I was going to die.
My parents used to always say a bullet doesn't have a name on it.
Someone put a bullet in the back of my 14-year-old son's head.
The gun should never be an option.
We're Americans. We don't have to live like this.
We can all make a difference.
In the United States, 88 people die of gun violence every day.
We can end gun violence.
Andrew, you've always maintained the way that things change is, like with cigarettes, they became less cool, which reduced smoking, maybe through pop culture, marketing, whatever. That would be a way to make going to a gun as the first resort, and you get people like this attached to it.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the whole, violent video games make people violent or that Hollywood's to blame for it. But, I think that does change people's opinions. If we can make it less cool, I think people would react to it a little differently, and that would eventually lead to changes in the political system. We talk a lot about Congress or the NRA in this. I think this is the kind of change that would have to come from the ground up. Change people's minds and hearts. You can change the law.
Stephen Curry, Chris Paul, this is, if pro athletes decide it's safe to get involved in an issue, that usually means they're considering endorsements and everything else. They obviously consciously said, we're going to attach ourselves to this. Could this be the start of something?
I hope so, Richard. I think we're all tired of the headlines that you report each and every night of innocent bystanders, the victim of a bullet. I think we all grew up. I know I grew up with a bullet doesn't have a name on it, and anybody can. So we can hope that when these NBA players are doing the right thing, because sometimes they don't get out there on issues. For Stephen Curry to get out front on something like this, who's the biggest star in the NBA, it's a great thing. But I don't know.
He's not a bigger star than Dick Cheney and Antonin Scalia, and they go duck hunting with guns, and I don't think the videos.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know.
Different audience.
I was about to say, I don't know if it'll play in Idaho or places like that. Right.
So, you've seen Hillary obviously poll test every single issue before she's going to put it out there. She's spoken out on this. I think, Tom, and I know you feel differently than certainly some of the leading voices right now on the campaign trail for Republicans do, but how is arguing to maintain the status quo where somebody on a terror watch list, which we won't let on a plane, still let them buy a gun, how's that a political winner anywhere?
Well, because you're talking to your base, remember, but let's go back to...
But even the base,
but let's forget what I think, right? Let's look at the recent poll about banning assault weapons. It is now flipped. People don't want to ban assault weapons. So while I sit here and think that I'm right on this issue, most Americans disagree
get
with me.
that, but
They
you know
disagree
what?
with me. And
Isn't
let me
this
just say
one easy, though, the terror watch list, just as a singular issue?
Well, the argument there has been, and I don't agree with
Get
it.
off the list.
Right, and I think that's a stupid argument, right? That you can't get off the list because so now you're infringing on Americans' rights, et cetera, and obviously the common sense people say, well, too damn bad. We'd rather protect other people than put guns in the hands of to terrorists. But these PSAs are ridiculous, and they won't have any effect for this reason, right? Having a bunch of NBA stars, right? What you need is a Dick Cheney to say, we need to fix this. That's why I've always said immigration in this country won't get fixed until we have a Republican president.
Bush tried to fix it.
Right. You need the other side to step forward and say, we've had enough of this issue. Having who you perceive to be in your corner is not going to change anything. And I've beaten my head against the wall.
Except that Democrats don't vote on gun issues. They don't vote for gun control candidates the same way that Republican voters tend to vote for pro-gun Republicans. You don't see Democrats being primaried on guns nearly as much as you see the NRA primary Republicans when it comes to guns.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is that until someone who, it's always when the New York Times endorses Hillary, we shrug our shoulders and go, oh, we expected that. When the New York Times endorses Donald Trump, then we go, wow. That now makes a difference. You got to have somebody from a corner where we don't expect to come out and say, you know what, we need to make a change here. That's the only thing that's going to resonate with the American people, because otherwise they're just going to go, yeah, that's what we expected. You know, everybody's in their own corner, and it's not going to change public opinion on it. And that's why I always thought it's so important for members of the NRA. When somebody who's in the NRA says we need tougher background checks, that resonates with me. When a Republican member of Congress says we need tougher background checks, that means something.
So where does that Republican come from? I mean, given the current climate, given where the NRA is, how do you find that Republican?
You know, Andrew, look, I think that if you look at the numbers say to me that Americans love their guns and they don't want to give up their guns. And that is a real problem for those of us who think we need more common sense legislation.
What I think, terrorism, people are scared.
Right.
This is not, it's
but
counterintuitive to ask them to give up the guns now.
But if you believe the numbers, and Tom's right, I hate to admit it, but on the assault weapons ban, the numbers flipped. In the immediate aftermath after Sandy, there was a choice that was made. I didn't begrudge at the time that they tried to go beyond, if you will, the four corners, that they weren't just doing the universal background checks, they went for the assault weapons, they went for a bunch of other things. Right. Just on the universal background check, 75% of the NRA agreed with it, NRA members, and 90-some-odd% of the American public, which never agrees on anything, they agreed with it. Maybe the president and maybe Democrats overshot it. But something as simple as a terror watch list and making it a singular issue and not something broader or anything else, to me at least, find me a person who's going to really try and make a coherent argument against that. And then the person on the fence will say, you know what, I'll take that one, not this one.
But the answer is gerrymandering, okay? We have gerrymandered our districts to the point where the farthest to the left you go, the farthest right you go, the better off you are. And particularly in these Republican districts where you have to continually run far right and not have any common sense whatsoever in order to say, look, you know those people in that district, what they're saying is the government's screwing us, we're on a terror, that guy doesn't belong on a terror watch list, and now he can't get a gun. He'll never get off the list.
Just like the demographics in this country are changing, by populations, the age demographics, the younger generation, they don't have a problem with gay marriage nearly as much as somebody in the plus 60 range does. I believe the younger generation, while still believing in the right to bear arms, they do believe in certain limits. And I don't think politically it's as risky for a national candidate on the Democratic side.
Does that show up in the numbers, though? I mean,
I've seen some of the metrics that the millennials support more restrictions. And millennials don't distinguish between Republican or Democrat youth. I know, I got to hit a break here. All right, when we come back, New York is loosening its rules, allowing cameras in courtrooms. We're going to debate if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'll see if I can maybe squeeze out an opinion out of Mark on this one. Stay with us.